Bhagavad Gita is a book of mankind's collected experience of and answers to life's most basic questions. Who I am, from where do I come, what is my purpose and destiny, and most practically, how do I find happiness? These podcasts originate in the lectures of Neil Bhatt, a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda. They are presented here in 20 to 30-minute segments, each covering 3 of the Gita's 701 verses. Welcome to Gita Wisdom for Daily Living.
We have been discussing Chapter 8, Akshara Brahma Yoga, Yoga of Imperishable Brahman. As we have seen so far, I will describe that supreme abode. I will indicate that goal which is very much sought after by people who are well versed in Vedas. Yataksaram Veda Vido Vadanti Visanti Yat Yoho Vitaragaha Yat Icchanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Pravaksheya. I will indicate that goal in brief. Brahmacharya is associated with the 4 ashramas we have in our culture, which is the first ashrama for life. So lifespan, assuming is 100 years, divided into 4 segments of life. Brahmacharya ashram is the first segment, which is the life of a student. Then Grihasthashram, which is the life of a householder. And then Vanaprasthashram, which is the life of a retired person. And then Sannyasthashram, in the life of a renunciate. So the life is divided into 4 segments. First segment is devoted for learning and deciding what is the goal of life. So it's called Brahmacharya. Brahma eva charati saha brahmachari. One who is walking the path of Brahman is Brahmachari. So the Brahmacharya is defined as path of Brahman. In other words, that which leads me to the supreme goal. But because it was associated with Brahmacharya ashram, in our common cultural interpretation, it is interpreted as life of celibacy. Because a brahmachari, in the first 25 years of his life, who is basically preparing himself for the other 3 ashramas, is supposed to be refrained from any lust or any sexual desires or sexual activities. So therefore, it is commonly associated with celibacy as brahmacharya. But time and again, our scriptures point out that your goal of life is liberation, moksha, from this dukkhalayam. Therefore, in chapter 6, Bhagwan says, Prasantatma vigatabihi brahmachari vrate sthitaha manah samyamya matchittaha yukta asita matparaha. The seeker should have his mind quiet and established in brahmacharya, established in brahmachari vrata. That he is walking the path of Brahman only. In other words, all other pleasures of life become meaningless. For a seeker, all other goals are secondary goals. The primary goal is to achieve Brahman. Such a person is brahmachari. And he said, how one can attain that? Also, Bhagwan had said in that same chapter, in verse 16, he said, Na asnataha tu yogo asti, na cha ekantam asnataha, na cha ti swapna silasya jagrata naivacha arjuna. This yoga of establishing oneself in brahmacharya is not possible for him who eats too much, nor for him who does not eat at all, nor for him who sleeps too much, nor for him who is always awake. Where does our definition of brahmacharya, the life of moderation, come from? It comes from chapter 6, where Bhagwan has defined what is brahmacharya, yoga, for whom yoga is possible. So we have seen in this chapter, Bhagwan said, I will tell you that goal for which a seeker practices brahmachari vrata. And the knowers of Veda talk about the supreme goal, the vitaragaha, The people who are detached from all other desires, they enter into that state. And then Bhagavan has explained how at the time of your antaka, the time of your preparation, the packing times, when we are trying to take a journey, I have time to prepare myself, to pack my things, wind up things, and then move on. Antakala, how one should prepare at the antakala, and how he should be prepared for the departure. And then we have seen, Bhagavan said, you must remember that this life is not only life that you have. You have lived many, many lives before. We heard that in chapter 2, and Bhagavan reminds here by saying, A Brahma Bhuvanat Lokaha Punaravartino Arjunaha. Up to the world of Brahma, all worlds are susceptible to return. In other words, you go there with a return ticket. When I am only taking a brief journey to some place for a vacation, then I buy a return ticket. But I know I have to come back here. I go there, I enjoy that vacation, but when my time is over, I come back to the same place I started. So all the lokas up to the Brahma Loka, you are bound to return back to where you started. So we have seen that at a microcosm, when I go to sleep, my world is dissolved into nothingness in a deep sleep. But the next morning when I wake up, the same world comes into being. In other words, I return back to the same world. One said, any existence in any state of consciousness is bound to return you back to where you started, up to the world of Brahma. So in our Vedic and Puranic cosmology, our universe is viewed as made up of 7 lokas. Bhur, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Manaha, Janaha, Tapaha, and Satya. Satya is the Brahma Loka. So Brahma is living in the Satya Loka. You and I are living in Bhuho, which is Mrityu Loka. You can see these 7 lokas are also various level of consciousness, rising from tamas to sattva. So tamas is pure earthbound existence. Gayatri mantra, Om Bhur Bhuvaha Swaha. The Bhur is the Mrityulok. Bhuvaha is in between the Swarga and Mrityulok, which is Pitrulok, and then Swaha is Swargalok. But beyond that, there are other states of consciousness. So I can start from pure tamas, earthbound existence, to this sattva, to pure sattva, which is the world of Brahma. Brahma is living in the world of pure sattva, and I live earthbound in the world of pure tamas, in the material world, as we call it. So Bhagavan said, you may rise from one level of existence in tamas to rajas and to sattva, but as long as you are within the realm of prakriti, no matter which loka you are in, you're bound to come back to the same earthly mortal existence. So, A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjunaha Mam Upetyutu Kaunteya Punarjanma Na Vidyate. But once you go beyond this Prakriti, the 7 lokas of the existence up to the Brahma is bound by the laws of Prakriti. In our Vedic literature, it's called the world of karma. So I evolve by my own action from one level of existence to the next level of existence, from an amoeba to a human being, and from human being to divine being, which is the path of evolution. But even in this path of evolution, always 2 things exist: pain and pleasure. These experiences of pain and pleasure define my vasanas and my ignorance. And therefore I keep coming back to this loka. But when I transcend this world of perceptions, then I become established in the supreme goal. Mam upetiti kaunteya. But one who establishes himself in the supreme goal, which is beyond this world of perceptions, world of prakriti, punarjanam na vidyate. There is no rebirth for such a person. And then Bhagavan reminds us how insignificant our life is. Sahasra yuga paryantam brahmano vido. Ratrim yuga sahasranam tyaha ratri vido janaha. So I'm worried about my one life here right now. Bhagavan said, imagine that Brahma's day and night is 1,000 yugas, as we have discussed. So that we have calculated one day is 4.3 billion years in my time, and his night is 4.3 billion years in our calculation. So when I reach to a point to define my existence, I have to define this way, that as long as I am in Brahma's daytime, I'll keep coming back in some form of existence, depending on my vasanas. So Bhagavan gives us this cosmology and the cause and effect relationship, how it works in Prakriti. Avyaktad vyaktayah sarvaya prabhavanti aha agame. How this creation comes into being is explained from the Vedic perspective. From that unmanifest, all the manifested come into being at the agame, at the beginning of the day. My world comes into being when I wake up from my sleep. My world is dissolved when I go to sleep. So the last night when I went to sleep, my entire world was collapsed into deep sleep. The world did not exist in my deep sleep. But when I wake up, the same world, not a different world, comes into being. What I was when I went to sleep, I wake up the same person. So I went to sleep as an architect, I wake up as an architect. But the architect is avyakta in me. He is not vyakta. He is still avyakta. But rest of my world is vyakta right now in my daytime. Ratri agame pralayanti tatra eva vyakta sangnake. At the time of night of Brahmaji, the whole universe dissolves into unmanifest. At the beginning of the Brahmaji's day, the world comes into being. In the Brahmaji's night, the world goes back into dissolution in unmanifest form. Bhuta grama saha evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate. The entire multitude of beings keep coming back in various states of existence, rebirth after rebirth. Praliyate ratri agame, and become unmanifest, dissolved into nothingness at the beginning of the night. So now do your own calculation. Because in Brahmaji, one day is 4.3 billion years. All creation continues into birth and rebirth for that individual conditioned consciousness we call jiva during that entire day of Brahmaji. With 4.3 billion years, an average lifespan, if you consider 100 years, even though we don't live 100 years, 40 million times you take birth during Brahmaji's one day. And then for another 4.3 billion years, you are into unmanifest state. Next morning of Brahmaji, you come back again for next 4.3 billion years. Another 40 million births. So how insignificant our this lifespan is something Bhagavan is emphasizing here. You should be considering your long-term goal, not your short-term goal about this life. This life is nothing but a speck in your overall existence. Bhutagrama, this entire world of beings, including your own self, they will all come back into manifestation at Brahmaji's day. So at Brahmaji's day and night, you can imagine Brahmaji's lifetime. You will be coming and going. All this time Brahmaji wakes up and Brahmaji goes to sleep. In other words, the world comes into being, world goes into dissolution. Ratrigame avasaha partha prabhavati aha agame. That world which was dissolved in unmanifest will come back into manifest state helplessly. I will wake up the next morning in the same state of my existence helplessly. Even though last night when I went to sleep, I decided that being an architect is not a good idea. I want to wake up tomorrow as a doctor. Helplessly, I'll wake up with the same knowledge and same baggage that I carry the next morning. I do not have really a choice because my today is made up of all the yesterdays I have. My today cannot be any different than my life up till now. My future will be what I add today in my all yesterdays. So Bhagavan said, Avasahapar Prabhavati Aha Agame. They come into existence helplessly in the same state they left at the time of dissolution. Paraha tasmat tu bhavaha anya avyaktaha avyaktat sanatanaha. This unmanifest state, when I am not existing as a being, but existing as the potentiality in this Prakriti, is one unmanifest. So I am unmanifest in my deep sleep, but manifest in my waking world and my dream world. At the micro level, I also grow from unmanifest to manifest. At the macro level, Prakriti goes into manifest and unmanifest state. But that unmanifest is nothing different than the manifest. All the potentiality of that manifest is in unmanifest. So Bhagavan said, but beyond this unmanifest, which has all the potentiality of the Prakriti, is another unmanifest. Yahasa sarvesu bhutesu natsyatsu na vinashyati. When all beings are destroyed at the time of Pralaya, which is the night of Brahma, and they are destroyed into unmanifest form, this unmanifest does not get destroyed. In other words, it is something other than this unmanifest and manifest, which we have discussed about the beings at the individual level and also at the universal level. At the universal level, there is a day and night for this universe. At the individual, I have day and night of my own being. But once there is another unmanifest, which is beyond this, higher than this, beyond the understanding of your perception and your intellectual ideas. Avyaktaha aksharaha iti ukta tam ahu paramam gatim, which is called the unmanifest and the imperishable. That which was indicated as Om, that which is indicated as akshara, imperishable, they say is the highest goal. Those wise people say that is the highest goal. The goal of your life should be not to go through this life of pains and pleasures, because all the lokas, right from the Mrityuloka to the Satyaloka, they are houses of pain and pleasures. But beyond this Prakriti, that imperishable is beyond pleasures and pains, and therefore that should be your supreme goal. If your goal is to have infinite happiness and no unhappiness, only way you can achieve that is when you transcend this world of Prakriti, which we call it samsara, samsarati, that which is constantly changing. If I can go beyond this world of change, then only I can have that infinite happiness. They who reach it never again return. Yam prapya na nivartata. Once you go there, there is no coming back to this world. Once that state is achieved and realize that I'm not an individual ego, there is no avidya, there is no ignorance after that I am this conditioned consciousness, I am this individual self. Tad dhama paramam mama. That is my abode, Krishna. So here Krishna is representing that supreme self, that Brahman. So Krishna, when seen as Brahman, that imperishable Brahman, the pure consciousness, is my abode, is my own home. From a Puranic perspective, if Krishna was the avatar of Vishnu, then he said that my abode is that abode. and Purana is called Vaikuntha. The Vaikuntha is beyond Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka is the abode of Brahma, and we are all Brahma's children. So we come in his world, we'll go dissolve into his world. Beyond Brahma is Vaikuntha, which is Vishnu's loka, and beyond that is Shiva's world, which is Kailasa. And if you look at Krishna's world is called Goloka and Purana. But all those are beyond the world of creation and dissolution. The creation only comes from that which exists. Creation cannot be of something completely new out of nothing. So this my world of ideas about my own self creates my own existence, from one existence to another. When that identification is broken, Bhagavan said, then only you achieve that supreme state which has no manifest and unmanifest, just unmanifest. We'll stop right here. If you find this podcast helpful, please support it by donating any amount by going to the episode's website at neilbhatt.podbean.com or at chinmayarichmond.org. Thank you. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhaved. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.